The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, this time on the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. Want to bring history to life in your classroom? With Everything is a Primary Source to go, you can borrow real historical artifacts from the last 200 years, shipped right to your school. It's hands-on history, paired with ready-to-use lesson plans and classroom activities that make the past come to life for you and your students. Whether you're teaching the Industrial Revolution all the way up through the Communication Revolution, there's something in our collection for every era. Visit everything-history.com/EPS to go and start transforming your teaching today. That's everything-history.com/EPS to go, because history belongs in your hands. Welcome to the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, the show where we construct history through popular culture. I'm your host, Eric Salmonson. I'm a social studies teacher, historian, and pop culture enthusiast. Each episode, I sit down with everyday people to discuss the media, objects, places, and events that shape us and reveal what they say about the past, as well as who we are now. The Everything is a Primary Source podcast is, therefore, your history, my history, our history through popular culture. Daniel, thank you so much for stopping in and your interest in this podcast.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to me. And have you visited Makers Fest before?
Yeah, this is my second time. I came here last year, and I also met the Creative Guts folks over there. Sat down with them, and that was really, really cool. I'd sort of been exploring writing and such at the time, and I ended up submitting a poem to one of their magazines, and they put it in. So
nice. Yeah.
I sort of had a little relationship built there and joined their Discord, and sort of I'm exploring the writing literature field, and for me it started off as poetry, so I'd like to come back now and just kind of see. It's nice to just kind of get a sense of what's going on, what kids are doing, and having an ear to the ground, so to speak.
This is a good landing place for creative things.
Absolutely.
And I like that this Makers Fest has it's gotten a lot more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've been doing it on and off for a couple years now, and for a while it was very heavy in STEM type stuff. And nothing against science and technology, that's all cool, but it's not as accessible as something like the written word.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you started writing poetry, I'm sure you just started writing poetry. You didn't need to...
There was no gateway.
Right.
Which felt weird, because I'm like, at what point are you someone who writes poems versus calling yourself a poet? Like, that's it's a fine line, but it's also made up. It doesn't really exist. There is no gateway. So you can just...
liberating in a way.
It is. It really is.
And especially if you go the organic route that it sounds like you did, going to somebody and having them publish it.
Yep.
That's adding to your credibility as a writer, right? That you are actually a published writer and not just somebody who is saying it because on the side sometimes maybe if they sort of kind of want to. Like, no, I legitimately... somebody likes it, and it's not just a quick little like on instant media, social media. Or
exactly. No, I remember getting the email and I screamed and kicked a brick wall. I was really excited because it's a small little magazine, but like you said, it's just somebody likes it enough to give it form, which is really, really cool.
Well, we should all be on a mission to bring back physical media again.
Absolutely.
And I know it's weird saying that on a podcast, which is not physical media, but it's a podcast about physical media, so I guess it kind of works. And because that's what media is all about, is it's meant to be talked about, it's meant to be dissected, not just consumed.
Yeah.
Right? It's meant to inspire. Like, who would you consider your inspiration to become a writer, a poet?
That is a great question. I think I've done a lot of passive engagement with text, and Oscar Wilde I was introduced in high school, and it was an assignment, and that was one of the first books we had to highlight and do that, but I found that I needed to restart it and go in with a pencil and highlighter at all times, because there would be so many things, sentences crafted that just made me I'm like, I don't even have to agree with what you're saying, but you said it so beautifully that it makes me want to just completely give myself over to this character's philosophy. And I think when I've had run-ins with authors like that, John Irving's another one, a local author from Exeter, there were just moments where I was like, you moved me, and I'm just sitting on my couch, and that's something that I want to be able to do. And then kind of starting writing, and I've been going to poetry open mics and just like seeing an impact live in the moment of something that I wrote it down and I brought it with me, and people were impacted by it. And it's a simple, that's what media does, but to actually live it and see it and not just, like you said, be consuming it, it was really, really rewarding, and I got sort of like addicted to it. So I don't know.
No, that sounds incredible. That sounds exactly the kind of message I hope a lot of people, it lands with them, because especially young people, they are the main target audience for most of the things that are to be consumed.
Right.
And so often that's all they do. Like you said, I'm on my couch, I'm watching a screen, maybe looking another. Hey, what's stopping me from being the creator of these things?
Yeah.
And in a previous time period, like let's go back in time to Oscar Wilde's era, that really was the only option. And there may have been more gatekeeping back then, especially with, if you wanted to be published, it wasn't something that was automatic. You had to go through a lot of barriers and editors and people sizing things up and deciding how they could make money off of your item or not.
Yep.
So not as much of that now, but it's still a when the postcard that we came to this decision on what to talk about is Ireland's writers, and most of these names come from the same general era of getting their thoughts all out there on paper, on typewriter perhaps, because that's the only way that at that time they could express themselves. So hopefully we can bring at least some elements of that back again.
Yeah, and that's what I've been trying to, I think writing a poem in and of itself, if it's something you're compelled to do, it's not that hard. The editing process is whatever you make of it. You can choose to really, really be nitty-gritty, or you can just kind of be, this is what I produced, and this is what it is. But for me, I find the difficulty comes in then sharing it, because sharing it has an obvious direction, social media platforms, but there's it's when you put a lot into something and then you want to give it to people and it's just interacted with on a very, very brief, oh, I like that, or you say, oh, this is really cool, but you know that it's going to be one thing in a flurry of other things. So for me to put my heart and feelings into something, put it on those platforms, it's going to land, for a fact, it's going to land softer than all the heart that I put into it. And so it's almost discouraging to put it out, but it's a necessary part of the process. Doing it and then putting it out feels organic, but the actual place that it goes feels inorganic. And so I'm still struggling with, how do I present my work in a way that fulfills me and reaches people? Because, I could post something on a billboard or try to print something in a local paper, but nobody my age is reading a local paper. So if I'm speaking to kids my age or problems of my age, I have to meet it where people meet. So it's hard. It's very difficult to navigate.
Yeah, to get things to match up just right. But I appreciate very much what you're saying about, because delivering it to an audience is still part of the process.
Yeah.
It's not the aftermath.
Yeah.
And if it's not to the right group, it's like, name a famous musician, if they're the opening act for something completely wrong for them, or in the back of a laundromat, or, just, if it's not the right place, then all of that effort was for nothing.
Yeah.
And the next time you do it, it's not as solid, so it's like finding the right venue, the right platform.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for the most part probably a huge miss for social media.
Yeah.
Not the best place for putting out hard work. It's for videos that took you 13 minutes tops to make. It's for making a little clip or something like that. It's not meant for the person that puts emotions and passion into something.
Yeah.
That's not the idea.
And I read an article recently, someone saying how the modern writer is almost forced to engage with video. Not by their own choice, it's that you're not going to reach readers without giving them a visual component. So you see so many formats now of a written poem or text, and it's over video clips with subtitles going on. So there's almost no active engagement. Everything is being put at you so you can hear it and read it, and your mind's being distracted by the images. And that is not something that I want to devote time to do.
I'm curious if as an audience member, if more of us can say, we don't want this either. Don't treat us like we're children or something. We can handle a piece of paper with print on it like that all by itself. We don't need constant stimulation of all of our senses. We can compartmentalize pretty well. When I want to listen to music, I'll listen to music. When I want to watch a movie, I'll watch a movie. If I want to read a book, I'll read a book.
Yeah.
We don't need to wrap everything else all together into one big package. So when it comes to Oscar Wilde, and in particular the Portrait of Dorian Gray, what ideas or behavior does that particular story convey? And it seems like I just went right from our topic to something totally different, but I have a feeling that they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
His era had its own vanity.
Yes. And that is an interesting question, because there's what is the book trying to tell you, but what does it say to me? Because there is an insane amount of quotables in that book where you have a character giving you sort of an overt philosophical stance or making some loud moral claim that's not dressed up. It's just like, this is...
I just want to make sure we're in the right time.
Yeah. What is it? Late 1800s?
Yeah, he died in 1900. So
okay.
We're stuck right there in that nice late 19th century.
I'm not ever thinking about life in the 1800s. I'm, the furthest back I would go is, pre-World War I or something. So that's a time period that maybe myself and other people have a disassociation with. But in that book, the whole premise is you have Dorian, who he's beautiful. He's the embodiment of youth and potential, and there's a character who just showers him with praise and sort of guiding his potential to where he thinks it should go. So you have a young person with this spark, this light, this physical beauty, and then you have an older person who becomes a sort of mentor to him. But as the reader, you can kind of tell this older mentor is steering him in sort of malicious, dark paths, but the character is falling into that and just like, like I'll go and I'll sin because I still look beautiful. People still love me, so it's okay for me to do these things. And as the story progresses, you see that the physical changes in one's face that would happen if you were to live a life of tyranny and lust and all this malicious behavior, it's imprinted on the painting. And he learns that. So he sees, okay, so every wrong that I do won't be reflected on my body. People won't see it, so I can do more wrong. And it's while it's glorifying that behavior, it's also a warning. Like, here's what happens if you sort of... I love it because I'm seeing it. I'm trying to get there. So take online presence, a social media, or you're a content creator. That's the painting, so people might see that painting, but behind it, someone is being affected by the way you engage with that media or by the media that you create and put out to the world. Because sure, it might be motivated by making money, but you're also making a statement about your perspective, who you are, what you see, what the world should be like when you post to the world. So if you think that you can have content, be a content creator, but also not be affected by it and separate those two things, well, I think Dorian Gray would say that you're wrong. You can't. Those two things are intertwined. The life you live and the image that you give to people, those two things are entwined. You can't escape from the symptoms of your own misdeeds or good deeds.
As a fellow educator, I know that taking our social studies classes to historical sites and museums can be a rewarding experience for everyone involved. But between coordinating transportation, keeping track of permission slips, and paying out of pocket for unforeseen expenses, it can also be a large task for a busy teacher. The Everything is a Primary Source to Go artifact borrowing service replicates the most engaging part of a museum field trip. And that's interacting with real historic objects directly in your classroom, but without the process and cost of taking your class off campus. The Everything is a Primary Source archive contains ephemera and physical objects dating from the 1820s onward, with emphasis on the 20th century. Pre-made and curated kits pull from the collection and are designed to complement your curriculum, just as the exhibits at your favorite cultural center do. Visit everything-history.com to learn more about EPS to Go and how it can help you bring the museum to your classroom.
Those things aren't going to go away anytime soon. You know, they don't get erased. A portrait, a painting is meant to last.
Yep.
You know, whenever in my classroom, because these questions that I have all come from a form that I use in my classroom. Anytime we analyze anything, we answer these questions as a class. That's actually where the podcast came from.
That's awesome.
Doing that with my students, I'm like, this would make a good podcast.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions is, why did they make it, right? And who's the intended audience?
Yep.
And when it comes to portraits, paintings, a lot of times it's not for people right now. The contemporary audience is not this one, right? You know, it is not the intended audience for the painting. It's for the future.
Yeah.
It's for the legacy, because so many paintings, especially portraits, have messages being sent in them, and it's not about learning about somebody in the moment. It's like, what's future generations going to think of you? What's your legacy? And at the same way, the kind of media that's being created now is not going away. It might get buried because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
Even just one creator might have thousands of videos that they make online.
Yeah.
But we do know that people will, you know, if somebody makes themselves vulnerable, and you can say it's right or wrong, but people do start digging into your past, into your media past, and will find what they will determine as, or actually is, not good. You know, we don't want this. It's a bad look. Well, you did it, right?
Yeah.
On your quest to vanity, on your quest to celebrity, you made this content, and it's there. It's not going away. I think that in Oscar Wilde's era, that we obviously didn't have digital media out there, but with the availability of and the more affordability of, say, printing, making content, making media, photography was getting far more democratized. People were doing it more often. There was much more of a public presence for people than ever before.
Yep.
Anybody, if they put in a certain amount of hard work or go down a certain path, because of technological advances, the phonograph was on its way. You know, there was radio was in its infancy when he died, but it was, you know, those the second industrial revolution, all those new technologies, so many of them communication technologies, were opening up doors for people that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And they start heading down that pathway. This might be kind of a warning to them.
Yep.
Be like, okay, you want a public life. You want this public view of you that most people don't get. Because even portraiture is not something that ordinary people in that era had access to.
Sort of a show of status.
Yeah, like it just having one meant that you were, you had the time, you had the money, you had all this, you know, reason to have your portrait done.
Yeah.
Photography was changing that in his lifetime. It was making it more applicable. So this story being broad-based warning to everybody should take heed. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just to the aristocracy. It was, hey, everybody, just so you know, your images might be out there.
Yeah.
Right? That what you do in your private life could be presented in your public life too, and just be mindful of that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I'm totally off. Maybe we could talk to Oscar Wilde expert and be like, no.
No, but isn't that amazing though? I like what you said, that it's not for now, it's for the future, because I wonder if Oscar Wilde, in writing that, could have ever predicted that people would be having a conversation like this about his story. Like, what can we learn from this sort of seemingly niche story about people who are very, very high snobby society? How does that apply to the layman now? Because the layman can buy an iPhone for less than $500 and post and access almost anything, and so they have that same potential to impact or pollute or clean up. But it's encouraging to hear that too, because I think we've lost touch with the fact that art is meant for posterity in a way, and that it's meant to communicate to people further along. And the amount of artists we talk about now who in their time were rejected or unknown, but now we shower them with praise as being one of the greatest in history. And it's so interesting. We want that instant gratification of making something, making money, or getting viral off it, but you don't get that. If it's a really good thing, if it's a message that's meant to be delivered, sometimes you can't have that. You can't see it come to fruition, which is, I think, more beautiful, and still doing it for that sake. I don't think even in our architecture, we're not building for generations and generations to come. We're building for convenience and cost, and we gotta get this done. Let's get it done. I mean, buildings took decades to build,
and you can see it.
Yeah,
like the design of certain structures nowadays, even like a McDonald's.
Yeah,
those used to have a pretty distinct look to them, and now they're all shoeboxes.
Yep. They have the same sort of paneling as those new apartment buildings and stuff, and so I definitely find I gravitate towards old things just because they have this. They have an aura about them where I'm going through that postcard box. I was being very gingerly with all the things because some of those had people's messages on them, and I think that's the coolest thing. That other card I picked, Mystic, Connecticut. I have a cousin named Eric from Mystic, Connecticut.
Well, that's me. This was actually sent to me from my brother.
That's crazy. And,
but that it's. Yeah, a lot of these other ones that I have are from all over.
Yeah.
And I too like the ones that have messages on them because they're like, that's a moment in time.
Yep.
With somebody taking the effort, like you said.
Yeah.
It doesn't take forever to write a postcard, but it does take more time than it does a message through the phone. And going back to you being a writer and all these writers that we were discussing, I did have a time, it was probably about 20 years ago, that I was like, I had a book idea. I was like, I want to write a book. And I sent it to this guy, a fellow educator, and an older guy, and he was a big Librophile. He loved books. Like, he was always lending me books that he had from his collection, these dog-eared, paperbacks and stuff. Oh, you like this one? That kind of guy. And I said to him, I'm interested in writing a book or writing something. And he just said it so plain. He's like, oh, leaving your mark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. That's exactly what it is. And like, I was here, and this is what I thought. And this is what's wonderful about being a human being, is that I can express these ideas. And it does still exist. We're making digital content right now. It does have an existence there, but that can get wiped out in an instant. All you need is some server to go down, or the lightning strikes it, or I don't know exactly how it works, but it's not nearly as consistent or reliable as even a piece of paper.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because you could flip that and say, well, the book isn't reliable because it could burn, but you want to have a digital backup. But the same is true both ways. But I think that everyone understands that resonance that a physical thing has. And I mean, you look at history, people died protecting books and texts and ideas, because that book was the container of an idea that was good and needed to stay. So you protect it, you hide it. And there's something beautiful about that. And like what you said, just leaving your mark. Like, hey, and because, if you get down the philosophical rabbit hole and you become nihilist, there's no point. But getting to put your foot down and say, I was here, and even when I'm gone, people are going to remember me because I have this thing. And maybe you become more known after you're gone or something. But it's hard entering it now because of how saturated everything feels. It's like, well, what's the point of me contributing to this cacophony of voices? But that's a feeling that I have to work on, getting over it, because if I want to do it, that's the only justification.
Maybe this is a poor sample set because we're at a place called the Maker's Fest, and it's all about people who like doing things and having physical things in their hands. But I get the overwhelming sense that we might be hitting an apex of all this minutia of digital stuff, and that we're going to go back into an era where people demand maybe not a complete return to just that, but more of it.
Yes, I totally agree.
Even just more bookstores, or there's this wonderful place. I need to go there someday. I've never been to San Francisco, but there's a place in San Francisco called the Pellinger Library, and they are an inspiration for me because they collect, as I do, ephemera from all over. They also have a library of books, many of which are out of print, were never popular to begin with, from weird sources. In other words, it's like the land of misfit toys, but for books. And they collect them purposefully for that exact reason. Like, we don't want whatever effort went into making this book, even if it's not even accurate information anymore. Something about like the moon written in the 1940s before man landed on it. It's not accurate anymore. It's the direction that we didn't end up taking, but it's still human thoughts. It's still humans leaving their mark, and you have a place for them. And the idea is that it's accessible to everybody, just like any other library, to inspire creativity, to inspire thought, to inspire just reading something for a while instead of just bypassing it on your phone. And remember a couple years ago, Kindles and Nooks were the big thing. I remember seeing the author Avi. Do you know Avi? He's written a lot of different books, mainly YA stuff. But I saw him speak, and it was great seeing him speak because he actually sounded and kind of looked like Christopher Walken. So he's like, and it was like, hey, it's if I close my eyes, it's him. But somebody asked him, because I was right at the crest of the Nook age, the e-reader, and they're like, hey, what do you think about these e-reader things? He's like, I don't see what the trouble of just taking a couple paperbacks and putting them into your duffel bag on a flight is. It's like, it's effortless. He's like, it seems like a lot of effort goes into just starting one of those things. And you don't get the physical papers. Like,
I gotta be able to write on it.
Right, or turn the page backwards. Or, I don't know, it just seems like, oh, we'll add the sound effect to it. It sounds like
they have the digital page turn, and it's like...
No, like, I want, like, to be able to, I don't know, there's just something about a book. Or any piece of printed material. The smell. They can't produce that. They're not gonna shoot it out from the Nook. That sounds really dirty. But, but you know what I mean. So it's like, I think to bring it back all full circle, Oscar Wilde was a man before his time in many ways. In his own personal life as well. He was projecting a warning for all in this ever-increasing media age of like, hey, just because you can, do it, but just know that you have to be careful navigating this world of mass media and getting noticed. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this with me.
Absolutely, Eric. It's a pleasure.
I look forward to having this go out there very soon in podcast form.
It's amazing. I love what you're doing. I think this is, it's you predicted we were at the apex and there's a return. I think the return will be a synthesis, and this, to me, you got the technology and the recording, and I'm surrounded by old stuff, and it's a great synthesis, and I think it's really cool you found a little niche with this.
I appreciate you saying that.
Great talking with you.
Take care.
You too.
popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything as a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.